This is the end of this 4 weeks of teaching, but what I want to say is that it's actually the beginning. You know, this whole 4 weeks has been preparatory time, and if you were here when I opened this series, this was a message that had been given to me down in Arizona. If you weren't here and you haven't heard any of the messages, get on your knees and repent because you're in sin. So, um, that's funny. Um, so, hey, for those of you who haven't heard me teach, we go to church, and if you've been in church a long time, church is supposed to be a stuffy place. I don't believe that. God's having fun. I'm having fun. He's having fun in me. I'm going to have fun with him. And if he and I are the only ones today that are having fun, that's okay too. So we're gonna have some fun. So it's okay to laugh and joke and do all that kind of stuff. Um, but if we look at the whole thing, it's easy to kind of look at it in this 4 weeks and say, we've learned some really cool stuff, but it's actually the beginning. And the word that I got when I was down in my time working down in Arizona at the Big Tent Revival, one of the speakers said something about a generation of people coming up on the earth, just to kind of give you some review so you know where we are and where we're going from here forth. He said it's a generation of Christian that he says, I believe that we've never seen before in the earth. A generation. There have been people, but a generation of people, Christian, that move in a fear of the Lord. A generation, not one, not two, not even 10 or 100, but a generation of Christian that move in the fear of the Lord. And when I heard that word, shortly thereafter, the Lord kind of dropped in my spirit. Presence positions you for power. And so this 4 weeks has been about an understanding of experiencing God's presence in such a way that it allows him to move unhindered and unabated in our lives so that his power is manifest in the earth through us, a generation of people. So we're going to kind of get into what I say is the last one, but it's actually the beginning. It's the beginning, because I believe if you look at everything in totality, he's equipped us. He's given us a glimpse of the whole entire redemptive process from the beginning to have us move in his power without any hindrances. So, Miss Patty, you know me. Last week I spoke it. We didn't play it, but the Lord ministers to me in song. So he gave us a song today to start to kind of show you where we're going as far as the table's concerned. So, Miss Patty, if you go ahead and cue that up. God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them. God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and rule over it, the fish of the sea and over the birds of the sky and over every living thing that moves on the earth. For many of us, the song represents the question. Who am I? We are constantly searching for the answer to the question that only God can answer. Who am I? What did you make me for? Why am I here? What have I been created for? Who am I? I'm yours. I'm yours. You listen to that song, we have a natural understanding. My girls call out to me. I would move heaven and earth. And I can't. And I can't. But I would try. our dad can. He can move heaven and earth to get to you. The difficulty is from the beginning, everything was perfect. The garden was perfect. And if you think about the process that we've been through over the last 3 weeks, what we've actually been doing is working backwards and understanding how everything was supposed to work from the beginning. The altar, sacrifice and submission. In the garden, Adam and Eve had no wants. They were fully reliant on God. They didn't need to do anything on their own. They didn't have to figure it out. They didn't need to know it. They were completely reliant on the Lord. They honored him. They recognized that he was holy and perfect and all of those things, the altar. When Satan entered the garden, he took that away. Now we have a process that we have to understand to restoration. This is God's redemptive plan back to the original condition of the earth where we operated in his power and authority unhindered. He created the earth, and what was his mandate? Subdue it and exercise authority over it. We were meant to operate in God's power. Amen. It got messed up. It got messed up. So the last 4 weeks we've been looking at, how do I understand what his perfect plan was for me from the beginning? So the altar. See, in the garden, they didn't need the altar because there was no broken, they were constantly in sacrifice to God. They walked with him. The secret place was the cool of the day. That was the secret place. They walked with him in the cool of the day. The wilderness. God provided food for them in every way. He said, all of this stuff, eat. He said, except for one thing. What was that? Don't eat of the tree in the center of the garden, which was the tree of what? The knowledge of good and evil. You don't know what you need. I do. Don't even be bothered with it. I know what you need. Trust me. So don't eat of that tree because you don't need to worry about it. I got everything handled. The altar. Sacrifice and recognizing God is holy. The secret place. Looking at that intimate, unbroken fellowship with the Lord. The wilderness. Understanding complete trust and obedience and total reliance on God as our provider. The table. As I meditated on the table last night, the Lord said this to me. The table is the seat of power. The table is the seat of power. My wife gave this to me a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to use it because he speaks to her, and through her I get really cool stuff, so when I stand in front of you, I actually look like a genius, but I'm really not. So, the altar, the secret place, and the wilderness keep us at the table. The altar, recognizing sacrifice and submission. He is holy. He deserves to be worshiped. The secret place. I don't ever want to lose that fellowship and unbroken communion with him. I want to be close to him. I want to snuggle up next to him. The wilderness, understanding that it's complete trust and obedience that I must have in him as my complete provider, keeps me seated at the table. What is the significance of the table? The table is where we learn, our identity as sons and daughters. I'm going to say something, and I pray that if you go, hey, that doesn't make any sense to me, that God will give it to you later. If you and I truly understand who we are as sons and daughters, not just as followers, not just as worshipers, as sons and daughters, you will walk down the street, your shadow will fall on people, and they will get healed and saved and delivered. Amen. Jesus understood who he was as a son. The table is where this happens. I have to be at the table. In the 50s, in the 40s, in the 30s, you know, before TV and video games and all that cool stuff, families did what? They sat and they dined together. And that is where children learn the value structure of home. At the table. The Lord's plan has been for us to sit at the table so that he can tell us who we are. In the kingdom, in the palace, at the table, seated with the king, is family, and they share in his power and authority at the table. So this week, we're going to look at the table and how the Lord confers upon us our identity, who we are in him. We good? All right, you guys are like, just blink. If you can't move, just blink, and we're good. So, the Lord gives me some points to work with, so we're just gonna kind of go through it, and we're gonna work it point to point. So, point number 1, presence at the table is where the Father speaks and bestows to the son or daughter their true identity. It got distorted in the garden. It got messed up in the garden. When the serpent came, he gave them a false understanding. He actually spoke some truth to them, but it was twisted and it was mutated. And ever since that point, from that moment on, we've hidden ourselves from here, and the Father wasn't able to speak to us what our true identity was, so it's been distorted and it's been messed up. And that's why most of us are weird, because we've been running around and everybody other than the Lord has been telling us who we are. Yep. That's why we're goofy. It's okay. Me too. Hallelujah. Right? That's why we're goofy. Because this person is telling me who I am and who I should be. And this person is telling me who I am and who I should be. And we spend so much time, even when God is telling us who we are, we're telling God why he's wrong. A lot of us are telling God why he's wrong. He goes, you're a son. No, I'm not. I'm useless. I'm worthless. We're going to look at 2 passages of scriptures. We got Mephibosheth, who when he's called to the table, he says, I'm a dog. I'm lame. The prodigal son returns. The dad's glad to see him. And he goes, I'm not worthy. We spend way too much time accepting false identity. And here, the Lord gave me this one. And if you don't move a whole lot, people won't know that I'm talking about you, okay? False humility, I'm not worthy, is idolatry. The creator of all the earth, God created man in his image. God doesn't make junk. and he doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't ever get it wrong. He looks at us and he says, I'm creating you in my image and you're perfect. And it doesn't mean that we won't screw up, but he understands all that. But he says, this is who you are. For me to stand and look God in his face and say, I'm not worthy, for some reason you got this wrong, is for me to say, I'm on the same plane as you, and I can speak to myself what my identity is, and we can't. At the table, God speaks to us our true identity. So we're going to look at some scripture, and I gave some of it away, but that's okay. So we'll get some exercise. So in your Bibles, go to 2 Samuel chapter 9. And those of you who a couple summers ago heard the grace message, got a little bit of this. I'm going to put on my peepers today because that song got me all choked up. So my eyes are a little watery. So 2 Samuel chapter 9, just brief overview. We won't go into it in great detail, but I want to pull out some things. And I like what Marcus had to say today. It was actually kind of interesting. It's amazing how you can look at a passage of Scripture and the Lord gives you one thing for one season of your life, because we've looked at this before, and this was a season of grace the last time we looked at it, and we talked about grace and restoration. And today we're going to talk about identity. People who say that the Word is not alive. Come on. It's alive. It can speak to you in every season of your life if you let it. And we can look at one piece of Scripture and there be 1,000,000 things to get out of one passage of Scripture. 1,000,000 things. So, in chapter 9 of 2 Samuel, and those of you who know the story, I'll give you a quick rundown and then we'll look at the specifics. So we have King David now. Saul, replaced Saul as king of Israel. Saul had a son, Jonathan. Jonathan should have been the rightful heir because he was the king's son. But the Lord said, no, I got a different plan. David's going to be the king. And Jonathan attached himself to David. The Bible says that Jonathan loved David as himself. And he actually looked out for David and made sure that God's plans and purposes came to pass, even when Saul was trying to hurt him. And because of that covenant relationship that David and Jonathan had, David made a promise to Saul. And he says, hey, is there anybody left in Saul's house that I can show kindness to on behalf of David? Because of Jonathan. Is there anybody left in Saul's house that I can show kindness to on Jonathan's behalf? And somebody says, well, yeah, he's got a son. He's got a son, and he's living, down here. And he says, hey, call him up, because he's getting ready to do something cool. He's getting ready to restore everything and honor this covenant promise. So we're going to look, and we're going to start in verse 6. So Mephibosheth, this is the son of Jonathan. The son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, came to David and fell on his face and prostrated himself. And David said, Mephibosheth, and he said, here is your servant. So he throws himself down on the ground. David said to him, do not fear, for I will surely show kindness to you for the sake of your father Jonathan, and I will restore to you all the land of your grandfather Saul, and you shall eat at my table regularly. Regularly. That word in the Hebrew, regularly, means continual, without interruption. It's not like, hey, come over to my house, have a meal, hang out with us for a little bit, and go back home. He says, come and eat at my table regularly. The only people that eat at my table regularly is my family. Regularly, continually. It's my family. So he's saying something to Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth is not really sure what's going on yet, but he says, I'm going to show kindness to you on behalf of something you didn't do it, you didn't deserve it, but I'm going to show kindness to you for it, and you're going to sit at my table regularly, continually. Again, because he's got poor identity. Again, he prostrated himself and said, what is your servant that you should regard a dead dog like me? think about that. So here's the king calling him to the table, and he says, you're going to dine with me regularly. But because of his condition, and if you go on and read the story, you'll know that Mephibosheth was crippled. He was lame in both of his feet. He's saying, wait a minute, I've put on cripple, and I've put on low, and I've put on this, and all he could see in himself was, I'm a dead dog. Why are you regarding me? And he missed it because the king wouldn't have a dog sit at his table. Only a son would sit at the table. Then the king called Saul's servant Ziba and said to him, all that belonged to Saul and to his house I have given to your master's grandson. You and your sons and your servants shall cultivate the land for him, and you shall bring in the produce so that your master's grandson may have food. Nevertheless, Mephibosheth, your master's grandson, shall eat at my table regularly. Now Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. Then Ziba said to the king, according to all that my lord the king has commanded his servant, so your servant shall do. So Mephibosheth ate at David's table as one of the king's sons. In Hebrew, the word son is bane. And bane in the Hebrew meant one that furthered the name of the family. You're going to sit at my table, not just as somebody we've extended this gift to you, but you will carry the name of this house. As a son, you will carry the name of this house. So Mephibosheth says, I'm a dog. And David, and this is what our Heavenly Father does to us. We sit at the table, and I'm not worthy to sit at your table. And I think he chuckles when we do that. He goes, I know. I know. Because I'm God. And that didn't catch me by accident. You know, it's not like, whoa, there's a dog at the table. Who did that? He's not surprised. He knows who we are. But what he does is he doesn't even respond to that. You know, you see, God doesn't even go into argument and debate back and forth. He didn't go, no, you're not a dog. Okay, you stand upright. You don't have a furry coat. He doesn't do all of that. What does he simply say? He just simply speaks identity. I'm a dead dog. He'll sit at my table as a son. He didn't even argue with him. Doesn't tell him why he's not a dog. He just speaks true identity. You're a son. You're a daughter. Sit. And not just a son, but he's saying, I'm bestowing on you the right and the authority to carry the family name. Let's go to Luke. Let's go to Luke. And we'll go to the 15th chapter. And a lot of us have read and studied this one as well. This is the Prodigal Son. Some of us are still wayward. That's okay. God bless you. Hallelujah. Me. Starting in verse 20. So this is the son now. So he got up and came to his father, but while he was still a way off, his father saw him and felt compassion for him and ran and embraced him and kissed him. I think this is so cool. God cares so much about us. He wants us at the table so much that he's looking. And not only is he looking, it is bated anticipation. Because he's saying, I got a place for you at the table. Come home. Sit with me. So the father is looking off, anticipating. He had no idea. So think about this. He had no idea when the son was coming back. Every day, Dad went and did this. Every day. God's saying, I want to share my power and authority with you. I want to operate in the earth through you because that's what I created you for from the beginning. And he's waiting and he's looking. And he goes, will you come and take your place at the table? I believe there's a chair with all of our names on it at the table. It's not like he's got to go to the linen closet and pull out one because you were a surprise visitor. It's yours. And he's waiting for you to take your place at the table. So there's the Father. He's off and he's looking. And then verse 21, it says, and the Son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. So he's assuming now the world's identity. It's false. It's false identity. He goes, I'm not worthy anymore to be called your son. And we hop down to verse 24. And the Father says, for this son of mine who was dead and has come to life again, he was lost and has been found. And they began to celebrate. The Father didn't even respond to the question, the answer, or whatever the Son said. I'm no longer worthy. The Father didn't go into, okay, yeah, I know you screwed up and you made some mistakes and all of this other stuff, and yeah, you should be punished, but I love you and all of this other stuff. What did he simply say? This son of mine spoke identity, true identity, right back to him. This son of mine who has been lost, he's been found. Let's celebrate. At the table, God speaks to us our true identity. Here's a refrigerator magnet. You cannot know yourself by yourself. You cannot know yourself by yourself. So when the Lord speaks to us our identity, our most appropriate response is to hear and accept. Number 2, the table is where the Father not only speaks your identity, but he declares you openly. So it's not like in the house, it's like, okay, you're my kid, but when we get in public, I don't know you. Okay? So he's not like that. He's not like that. I think God is, like most of us in the natural. How many people right now in their wallets or in their purses have pictures of their kids? Right? Why? Because when people go, hey, or on your cell phone, right? Because we got those now, right? Everybody's like, wallets? We still carry those? It's like, what is that? I mean, it's like, what is that? Pictures in your wallet, actually? It's like, I got a phone. So, or on your phone, right? Hey, so when people say, hey, let me see your family, we're like, there they are, all 3,000 pictures of them, right? Because we're proud of our kids. Guess what? God is equally as proud of you as dad. And at the table, he not only speaks your identity, he goes, you're not a dog, you're simply a son. And it's not simply, that's pretty significant. I'm not worthy to be called your son, you're a son. Not only does he speak our identity, he declares us openly. Hey, God, where are your kids? Zzz. There they are. There they See, Hollis is showing me your kids. My son. That's awesome, right? All right, so let's go to back to 2 Samuel. Well, how about this? We're in Luke. Let's stay there real quick. So Luke 15:22. But the father said to his slaves, quickly, bring out the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet. And then he says, for the son of mine who was dead has come to life again. He was lost and he has been found. So let's celebrate. So he tells, and it's interesting, and I looked at that verse and I said, man, there's some really cool contrasts and comparisons there. The father says to the slave, go get this for the son. And he gets two things. Well, he gets the ring and he gets sandals. The thing that really kind of shocked me, he says, get the best robe. So we have to understand culture. So we have to understand culture a little bit. So he says, get the best robe. So I geeked out a little bit last night, so I'm going to share this with you guys. So best in the Greek is the word protos. Protos is best in the Greek. And it means foremost, best, chief, or first of all. Get the best robe. The very best one that I have. Get that. And robe is stole, and it is a long-fitting garment. And in this culture, the robe was a mark of dignity. So the father says to the slave, for my son, get the first, chief, best mark of dignity that I have and put it on him. I'm showing him off because the son that was lost to me is back. He's home now. He's taken his place. And what are we going to do? We're going to celebrate. We're going to let everybody know. I'm going to show him off. I'm going to show my kid off in front of everyone. Psalms 23:5. And you've prepared a table before me, spread out. In front of who? In the presence of my enemies. Why does God do that? He's doing that to say, these are my kids. Don't mess with them. My kids, don't mess with them. And then we go back to Samuel. And if we look at verse 13, and it says, so Mephibosheth lived in Jerusalem, for he ate at the king's table regularly, and now he was lame in both feet. Now, the Bible doesn't say this, but I'm going to, it's kind of an argument from silence, so I'm going to extract a little bit and say, everybody knew Mephibosheth's life condition before the arrival of David. They knew it. They knew where he'd been living. They knew that he was crippled. They knew he'd been displaced and all of those things. And now he lives where? In Jerusalem, in the city of the king, and regularly he eats at the table. Everyone knows that the only people at the table are sons and daughters. David said, I'm going to show him off because he's a son. At the table, the Father not only gives us our identity, he celebrates or shows us off openly. Point 3. We're doing good? Yeah. All right, all right. Number 3, the table is where the Father shares all that is his with his sons and daughters. The table is where the Father shares all that is his with his sons and daughters. So let's go to Psalms 23 real quick. And we'll look at verse 6. And here the psalmist David says, surely I know this. Goodness and loving kindness will follow me all the days of my life. And where will I be? I will dwell in the house of the Lord. How long? Forever. Everything that I have, everything that I've experienced is in Dad's house. Gives it to us all. Flip back over to Luke. Back to our prodigal son. Now, I find this one interesting because if you got siblings, if you grew up with siblings, you'll totally understand this one. There are actually 13 of us in my family, and it's kind of a weird situation. But there were 5, 6 of us that grew up together, and the rest of us lived with Dad and some other things. But it was always cool because my mom would let me do things, and my brothers and sisters would say, "Hey, how come my family nickname's Butchie?" He said, "How come Butchie gets to do that?" And you know what my mom's response always was? Because he's the oldest. And the biggest. so that's, oh, Mom, how come she gets to do that? Because she's a girl. Well, good, because I don't want to do that now. Thanks for clearing that up for me, Mom. So we're back to the prodigal son, and now we got Dad celebrating this son. He took now think about this. He took half the wealth, went out, blew it, came home. Dad didn't make him pay for it. Dad didn't beat him over the head about it. He said, what did he say? He said, take your place as a son. Because even though you and me, we do our very bestest to mess it up, God still has a plan and purpose for your life. Here's what I say. Stop fighting it. You can't mess it up that bad. Stop it. He's got a plan and a purpose for your life. So the prodigal son goes off. He blows all this stuff. He comes home. Dad says, my son is back. He's taking his place, puts the best robe on him, gives him the ring, sandals his feet, kills the fatted calf, and we're in the house partying. And the other son is like coming through the field. He's like, what in the world is going on? What is this? And he grabs one of the servants. What is going on? Your brother, who was gone, is home. So he does what, they did it back then. We still do it now. What do you go do? Throw a temper tantrum, right? Off to Dad. So he goes off to Dad. And we look in verses 25 and 26. Now his older son, and this is what's crazy because we got the oldest son, he was the one, he did it right. He stayed at home. He was with Dad. And the younger son was the one that screwed everything up. So the older son was in the field. When he came and approached the house, he heard music and dancing, and he summoned one of the servants and began inquiring what these things could be. And then we hop down to verse 30. So he's talking to the dad now, and he says, but when this son of yours, because he hits him with everything. He squandered, he did this, blah, blah, blah. I never left. But when this son of yours came back, who's devoured your wealth with prostitutes, you killed the fatted calf for him. And the father looks at the oldest son, and here's how he responds to him. He says, and he said to him, son, I can see him just looking at him going, son, you've always been with me. And all that is mine is yours. Lord, where's my gifting? Where's my stuff? It's yours. If you're not using it, if you're not walking in it, if you're not exercising it, it's not because it's not yours, it's because you've not done anything with it. The dad is looking at the oldest son and he's going, you could have done with it whatever you wanted. Everything that I have is yours. You never left me. That's honorable. Everything that I have is yours. All you had to do was ask. It is yours. The Father shares everything with his kids. There is nothing that he won't do for you if you ask him. I told you this some time ago, sharing with another friend of mine. We were talking about some things, and he says, he was saying to me, he says, I believe that the Lord operates and he does these things, and all of those, he heals and he saves and he does miracles. And I said, I believe that too. And I said, but here's me. I'm just childlike enough. I'm a son enough that I will kick open the bedroom door. I will run and jump up on the bed with Dad and go, hey, will you do that for me? You have not, because you ask not. Son, you've always been with me. And everything that I have is yours. You see, he took the wealth and he divided it between the two sons. He gave the younger son his portion. The older son remains. So the older son has his portion, but there's also Dad's portion. And to the son that remained, he said, everything that I have, my portion, is yours. At the table, David restores Mephibosheth's wealth, the wealth of his ancestors. He says, you work to the servants, you work the ground for him, but his portion shall be mine. I don't want him to use his resources. He'll enjoy my resources, what we were talking about. Everything that the Father has, he wants to give to us. It's yours as sons and daughters. Slaves and servants just get to tell everybody what's going on, and they got to go fetch the robe and the ring and stuff. Sons and daughters sit at the table and get to enjoy. 4, the table is where the Father teaches the Son to carry power and authority. He speaks your identity, truly. He declares you openly. He shares everything that he has with you, and then he teaches you how to walk it out. So let's go to John chapter 13. We hanging in there? Awesome. And we're going to jump down to verse 12, and this is the Lord's Supper. So we've read, again, I just love how the Lord kind of works some things in, and we probably don't always see this in the stories, because we read them at different seasons. So Jesus is at the feast before the Passover. He knows what he's getting ready to have to go endure. And he gets up from the table and he washes the disciples' feet. And we go down to verse 12. So when he had washed their feet and taken his garments and reclined at the table again, so where are they at? At the table. The seat of power and authority. They're at the table. He's speaking to them identity. He's letting them know what's getting ready to happen. And he said to them, do you know what I've done to you? He said, you call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for so am I. If then the Lord and the teacher washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet, for I gave you an example that you should do as I did to you. So Jesus, being the perfect representation of the Father. If you've seen me, you've seen the Father. I only do what the Father does. I only say what he says. Jesus, as the perfect representation of the Father, gives this example in how to walk in power and authority. And then he leaves with the sons at the table. Do what I do. If you're not at the table, you don't know who you are. If you're not at the table, you may be trying to pull all this thing off with your own resources. See, the younger son, he squandered all of his resources. Wasn't at the table. If you're not at the table, I can't teach you how to walk in power and authority. For 4 weeks, presence positions you for power. Last week, the Lord gave it to me because what I never would want is to have this go out in a religious spirit and say, well, if I do this, and if I do this, and if I do this, then this is what should happen. See, I'm really not all that concerned about the power. I'm concerned about his presence. That's what I care about. It's his presence that I'm after. It just so happens that the way that this whole thing works is I can't be in the presence of God without having his power come out and on and through me. Can't do it. Moses saw his back and people said, hey, dude, put a sack over your face because the glory is too much. Imagine what we look like when we see him face to face. See, he's inviting us into the secret place. The secret place is where he knows us. It's intimate. It's like a husband and wife. So he says, I want to look at you. I said, Lord, I don't want people to misunderstand what I believe you're doing. You and I understand this on a spiritual, intuitive level. I want to make sure that they get it. And he said, power is knowing who you are in God through Christ. Power. Jesus might have well just been a big piece of conduit. Because he said, I'm doing what the guy who sent me told me to do. That's it. It's unhindered. He just flows. Jesus spent his time on this earth not calling heaven down. He let it out. Knowing who you are in Christ is power. I only understand that as I am in his presence. Let's flip over one more. John 15. Verse 5, and then we'll look at 7 and 8. Jesus said, I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him, he bears much fruit, for apart from me, you can do nothing. And that's deeper than even that goes, because if you stay in him, where are we ultimately at? In the Father. Because Jesus was in the Father was in Jesus, to the degree that Jesus said he and I are what? One. So if you are in me as I am in him, you are in the Father. And what's the result? Verse 7. And if you abide in me, see, if, it's conditional. Guess what? You can leave the dwelling place. I'm going to tell you this. Bad idea. If you abide in me and my words abide in you, ask whatever you wish and it will be done for you. My Father is glorified by this, that you bear much fruit and so prove to be my disciples. Presence positions you for power. I come via the altar. I give of myself. I sacrifice because I recognize that he's a holy God. I worship him. He calls me into the secret place. We meet face to face. The wilderness walk is not always about you having done something wrong. It's about galvanizing your spirit to carry something much deeper and understanding that only in complete trust and obedience will he provide everything for you. At the table, he looks at me and he says, take your place, my son. All that I have is yours. Let's stand to our feet. I said, Lord, hey, Patty, can you give me a little music in the background, if that's possible, something? I said, Lord, how do you want to bring this home? And I want to say, the Lord thanks you, and I thank you for honoring me all these many weeks. You know, we got a great dad and pastor of this house, and he has made way for a son to wear the cool robe. And I'm honored that you guys braved the cold and you came out to listen. But I said, Dad, how do you wanna bring this home? And he says, I want to impart the heart of sonship. Staying at the table is a matter of the heart. See, the younger son, he said, give me all my stuff, let me go. I want to get away from the table. I'm going to get out from under you. I'm going to go do my own thing. The older son remained at the table. The Lord said, I want to impart a heart of sonship. Because what he wants to do is teach you how to carry his power and authority. Father, where do we begin? Where do we start It has always been your perfect plan for us to have unbroken, unhindered fellowship and community and communion with you, Father. And from the beginning, your mandate to us as those that you created in your image was to exercise your power and authority on this earth. And Father, we know what happened, but since that moment, your redemptive plan has always been to establish us as ruling and reigning with you, not as servants, not as slaves, but as sons and daughters. And Father, because of the voices that cry out to us from every place, from within inside of us, from outside of us, people that know us, people that like us, people that love us, people that hate us, we have taken on identity that is not true. And many of us have abdicated our place at your table. But Father, today we know that you're looking, waiting, as a loving Father, not so you can scold us and tell us of all the things that we did wrong and how we messed it up, but you're waiting for us to come back, and you're looking so you can run out and meet us, and you can fall on our necks, and you can kiss us. And then you can call for the servants and the slaves to bring the enemies, our enemies, Father. You set a table before us in the presence of our enemies. And you say, hey, enemies, go get the best robe and put it on my sons and daughters. Father, we honor you this morning. And just raise your hands to the Father. Father, our desire is to have a heart that truly understands what it means to be sons and daughters. And Father, as you have given me this word to share and the revelation that it brought as far as how you desire to wield your power in the future, you freely given, I give. And we receive the hearts of sons and daughters. And we take our place regularly at the table. And we cry out, Father, speak to us who we are. Show us off so you get the glory. We thank you, Father. And Father, I pray for a steadfastness that the people that have heard this word from your lips through me will never walk the same. And I thank you, Lord. And we receive all that you have. In Jesus' name, amen.